Hey everybody, video here for you today. We're going to go reinvestigate a mystery site in Egypt. Now, about 3 years ago, I did a video on everything that they call a pyramid in Egypt, and that was a very good one to do because some of those are certainly not pyramids or never were pyramids, but they are on the pyramid list. We're going to go down to a site today that I believe I talked about a little under 3 years ago, but I just want to see what else I could dig up on the site. This is called the Pyramid of Saila, and it's right down here. Of course, most of the things we call pyramids are located on the west bank of the Nile here, running for quite a ways, but this doesn't seem to have any connection to the Nile. Doesn't seem to be like any other pyramid as far as the location. It's just up here all by itself, but there has been some things noted, but the most important thing, they really don't have a clue who built this or the original purpose of it. Here is that structure sitting out all by itself, very unique. This looks a lot like the Pyramid of Djedefre at Abu Rawash, also the pyramid at Zayat al-Aryan, the one down at Dashur, a few others they call unfinished, but this is pretty unique. And the attachment to pharaohs is just kind of weak. They really don't know what's going on here. A lot of guesses. Let's just do a little reading. Just reading a little here, it says, in modern times it was not apparent that the structure many travelers had seen atop the remote escarpment in Gebel el-Rus was actually a pyramid. Before its excavation, it was locally known as El Quala, meaning the fortress, though it has since come to be called Haram Saila, or the Seila Pyramid. Even before its excavation, it could be easily seen as far away as Hawara when the air was clear. Though it stood 6 miles straight west of the Meidum Pyramid, there was nothing about the visible square covered in sand that would make explorers or archaeologists think it was another Sneferu pyramid. Sneferu's name was found here, so that's why they attached it to him. I just think this place is very interesting. It's on the pyramid list. It's attached to Sneferu, who built some of the greatest monuments in Egypt, an old kingdom ruler, and it seemed to have been sacred for at least a few thousand years. What's the story here? Well, they really don't know, but they attach it to 7 other small step pyramids, which are built along the Nile. One at Edfu, Elephantine, Helsinki. I talked about those in my Egypt Pyramid series, but it just seems to be a bit of a mystery. Here is the place of this pick 123 years ago. I think this is when Petrie was here. It said, it is not oriented exactly to the cardinal directions, but diverges about 12 degrees to the northwest. The reason for this orientation is that, like the pyramids at Elephantine, Nakada, and others, the structure is oriented to be parallel with the course of the Nile, which would have been difficult to accomplish given the great distance of this pyramid from the river. The pyramid originally had 4 steps and consisted of 3 layers, which was encased in an inner core. The building material was local limestone with a mixture of Nile mud and sand being used for mortar. There does not seem to have been a burial chamber. In 1987, fragments of an offering table, 2 stela, and the remains of a causeway were found on the east side of the pyramid, but those seem to be totally buried now. One of the stelas bore the name of Sneferu, so this was just on an offering table. And a stela, does that prove that he built it? No. Proves that he felt this place was sacred. But it says here, John Philip Lawler suggested that it might have been the original tomb of a queen, but this is unlikely given the absence of a burial chamber. Egyptologists consider the group of 7-step pyramids named above to have been a unified project, but have not reached an agreement on what the purpose of this group was. Different scholars have suggested that they were representations of the primeval mound, symbols of the political and religious unity of Egypt, or monuments commemorating the royal wives, so they really have no clue. But some of these places are attached to Sneferu, the Red and the Bent Pyramid, even Meidum. How much building did Sneferu do? It seems like he was the one leaving his offerings or his inscriptions at a lot of these places. It says the remains of builder marks and inscriptions on a limestone stela and an offering table confirmed that the pyramid was built in Sneferu's name and is inscribed with a cartouche, whereas his name, when recorded at the Bent Pyramid at Dashur, is inside a serac. This has led to suggestions that the Bent Pyramid predates the Seila Pyramid. Here's an article I will leave below. Saila, the first true pyramid. And this is all speculation. Here is a cartouche of Sneferu. The S sound right there. R, mouth, U, the chick. And you better get these bird symbols right, or you're going to be totally misspelling something. The chick symbol is for the sound that we associate with the U or the W, kind of in that vein. Then there is the vulture. That stands for kind of what we associate with the A sound. And then there is an ibis. And here you can see it found in the Cartouche of Khufu, Thoth. That stands for that. So that cartouche in the Great Pyramid looks a heck of a lot more like the ibis symbol than the chick symbol, and that's why I think that cartouche in the Great Pyramid is totally misspelled. You have to have these exactly right. Here's another representation of the names Sneferu in these bird symbols. Got to get them exactly right. There's more than two of them. Chick symbol stands for the U sound. Here is the Cartouche of Khufu. The ibis stands for Thoth. That's why it's put into this. The long beak, the slender body, the chick, more of a fuller body. Here's the cartouche inside the Great Pyramid. Long beaks, kind of a slender body. This looks a lot more like the ibis representation. Of course, you can always argue when did a certain hieroglyph develop, but the one for Thoth, I think that would have been a very ancient one. But you see a duck up above here. Owls were also used, vultures, chicks, and the thing you got to distinguish with the chick, very small beak. There's a good look at the chick symbol, the U sound that would have been used in the Khufu cartouche. Here's the Khufu cartouche, kind of a thin body, long beaks. These look more like ibises. That's why I say they are misspelled. You need to get those exactly right. But let's just read a little about this pyramid. Here's a look, something long coming off of it. This was very interesting to me. It says, it was built on a high plateau, almost 365 feet above the Nile River Valley. This new pyramid complex was one of the first rain harvesters with an aqueduct that transported water to a cistern at the foot of the plateau. The core of the pyramid was built with medium-sized limestone blocks and surfaced with polished, fine white limestone blocks. These were the first casing stones specifically designed to fill the steps of the core to form a smooth surface on the pyramid that efficiently shed rainwater to the base without causing splashing and erosion. The pyramid was 150 feet square and 65 feet high, so that's almost 2/3 bigger than Petrie reported it to be. It said it had a rain harvesting potential of approximately 22,000 gallons of water per inch of rainfall. I find that very interesting. This place did not have any of the things that Zayat El Arian or Abu Rawash or that pyramid at Dashur had that looked just like this. They had sarcophagus, alignments built in. That just adds to the mystery, though, how many of these places had rulers of Egypt buried in them. And of course, a lot of these places were looted in antiquity. But the main criticism of these smaller unknown pyramids and how they attach them to rulers of Egypt is there is just like one inscription they find nearby and they say, hey, this guy might have built this pyramid, this sounds good. But then even when you read about it, it says they really have no idea. This is just a guess. Here is a look from 1898 at what was up here. And this thing seemed to be kind of taken apart and re-put together at different periods here. But it says, even the first real archaeologist to survey the area did not realize what it was. Petrie briefly explored there, but his cursory examination did not uncover enough to dissuade him from what met his initial glance that he was looking at a mastaba. Petrie estimated the height to be about 25 feet, which is less than a third of what it originally was. Some historians said this was over 65 feet high and in steps. He said he also thought it was most likely a 12th dynasty tomb. A layer on the west side had been removed at some point, though Petrie could not tell at this time. Its removal made the pyramid seem more rectangular than it really was, causing it to look more like a mastaba. He wisely wrote that it would take more exploration to tell what was really going on with this monument. But he probably associated the 12th dynasty to this, maybe what he found at Hawara. Who knows? But I believe that pyramid down at Hawara near the labyrinth is associated to a 12th dynasty pharaoh. Here's another old article, the Saila Step Pyramid. Here it is. You can just barely see it up on top of the hill, but there is a lot of different information on this. It says here, most Egyptologists assume that the small pyramids were built by Huni, and that is another Old Kingdom ruler. There are 7 of these small pyramids which may mark the boundaries of the land or were built for ceremonial purposes, and that's just a very general guess there. No one really knows. They aren't complete pyramids. So are these the incomplete, unfinished pyramids? Is that what they are associating these to? Seems like it. They don't have the whole pyramid complex around them, and most have no internal structures. They were built in the second half of the 3rd dynasty and were mostly on the west bank of the Nile as befitting funerary monuments. It says they were built in the second half of the 3rd dynasty, according to this guest, and mostly on the west bank of the Nile as befitting funerary monuments. They are not tombs, however, but some have suggested that they are cenotaphs, false tombs for queens or religious shrines. Saila is the northernmost of these pyramids and may have been built by Sneferu. There's another guess. It stands only 7 meters high and has a 4-step core of local limestone. But it says in these articles that excavation is not allowed here, and even photography was not allowed for this expedition. Talks about the other pyramids. I've covered the Kula Pyramid, Edfu, Elephantine Pyramids in my Egypt Pyramid series. It says only scant remains of these pyramids exist, and they are of little interest to the tourists. But if they're on the pyramid list, I'll take a look at them, because some great mysteries are involved with some of these that are really not true pyramids. Here's an article almost 10 years old, work suspended at 4,600-year-old Seila Pyramid in Egypt. It says here, Saila is one of 4 pyramids constructed by the pharaoh Sneferu, the father of Khufu. This ruler revolutionized pyramid building by constructing the first true pyramids with flat sides that angled up towards the sky. There is a vast cemetery near the pyramid, estimated to hold nearly 1 million mummies. 1 million? Other articles you read says it's thousands of mummies, so you get a lot of widespread information on this site. Here is a book written on the excavations at the Seila Pyramid and the Faiyum Cemetery. Thousands of burials at least were found here. This place seemed to be sacred to many periods of Egyptian history, going all the way up to the period about 2,300 years ago, the Greco-Roman times. I just think this place is pretty fascinating. Goes back to the Old Kingdom, that's for sure. Seems to have been sacred for quite a while. Not much is known, just guesses. And even they admit to that. There is not much known in these places, but here's one interesting find. It says, we found an interesting mummy who seems to have been very tall. His legs were very long, but the space for him was a bit small, so they seem to have shoved him in so that his spine curved and bunched up, and his head was bent over his neck. This makes it very difficult to know how tall he was, but his legs were very long. Is that a little bit of red hair there? Not really sure, but an interesting find made it to site. I just thought I would talk about this today. These pyramids here are on the pyramid list, but little is known about them, who built them, when, their original purpose. There only seems to be one consensus. It says here, these pyramids are all built far from the major centers of Egypt, and very little is known about them. That is one of the pyramids we hear little about. Little is known from archaeologists on this site because, well, they basically have no good solid answer. Sneferu thought this place was sacred. That's why he left his cartouche, some offerings here, 4,600 years ago. Then 2,300 years later, it seemed to be important through the Greco-Roman time based on the burials of that necropolis. But this is a mystery. Not much is known. That's why I'm making the video on this today. Maybe some of you have never heard of this site, but I just thought it was interesting to bring up again. It goes along with some of the other videos I've done on Egypt. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have a very nice day.